In the darkest nights, we find our light, battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Our strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, and never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey, everyone. How you doing today? Welcome to Surviving Together, a safe place for sexual assault and other trauma survivors to join together, connect, and heal on their journeys, on their healing journeys, as well as trauma-related education for all who is interested. Let's see who we have in the house today on this gorgeous Saturday afternoon. I don't know if it is where you guys are, but it has been beautiful for the last 2 days here. Highs of 70, loving it. Of course, tomorrow it's going to be in the 30s, so what can you do? But I enjoyed it while I could. Let's see, we have Body Illusion and Other. How are you guys both doing? I'm glad you have joined us today. I hope you are well. Krumel, thank you as always. I really appreciate it. I'm going to need you to drop Creating Changes link here in a minute when I talk about it. So I'm not sure if that's something that you've got keyed up or not, but if you could, I'd appreciate it. Crystal is here. Wonderful, wonderful. I hope you are doing well. I hope things are going well with the apartment and that you've settled in nicely. Yes, as Crystal says, lurkers are always welcome. We love our lurkers. All right. Looks like that's all we have for right now. That is okay. I would anticipate most people are out enjoying this beautiful day. And that is okay. Hopefully you guys will catch us on replay. If you are, thank you very much. While I'm thinking about it, like and subscribe if you haven't. Actually, our subscription numbers of those who watch is pretty darn high. But if you're still watching and you haven't subscribed, why not? It's free. You get the notifications. You can always ignore them if it's a topic you're not interested in that particular day. And if you could comment after the show, particularly if you're watching on replay, really, really appreciate it. Hey, William, how you doing today? I hope things are nice in Brooklyn for you. You guys, I think, have pretty similar weather to us from what I hear. Half settled, sinus headaches, Crystal. Yeah, I woke up with a sinus headache and I was just like, why? I mean, I knew it was supposed to be like sunny and 70 today, right? And then I discovered it was raining this morning. So I'm like, oh, well, that explains it. Lovely. But that's okay. So you guys, I will be glancing down a little bit. I actually put my notes together on the computer. So we're going to see how this works. Normally it's my handwritten notes. They were kind of all over the place. And I needed to kind of rearrange them in different categories. So that is why I have them on the computer. So we'll see how it goes. Want to let you guys know we're still doing our clothesline project. That is a project that aims to break the silence on sexual assault and domestic violence. And you make a t-shirt with whatever saying is your truth, whatever you want to put on it. It can be something vague like love is kind, hands are not for hitting, or it can be something that is more specific to you, either as a survivor or a supporter of survivors. We actually have relatively few submissions so far, guys. So I really would love for this project to encompass, a wide variety of people from our community. So if you haven't done your t-shirt yet, please, please, please get it done. It's so simple. Just take an old t-shirt and write on the back, or turn one inside out. Grab a Sharpie, and really that's all it takes. You don't have to get fancy. You want to decorate it, with all kinds of things, or do something, more creative. That is totally up to you. You can also do a graphic in terms of using a graphic program to do it on the computer, so it doesn't actually have to be a physical t-shirt. If you are more creative that way, that works as well. So just take a picture and send it to me at SurvivingTogether, SASS@gmail.com. I will go ahead and throw that up here real quick so you guys can see it. And just put Clothesline Project in the subject line for me. It's an easy way for me to know, okay, that's what it is. I put it in the folder and away we go. Crystal says she got all her stuff ready, just needs to get it done. All right. Well, if any of you guys are in that boat and want to join us next Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and I will put out a community post on this soon, probably tomorrow, because I need to do some my regular job work today after the show. But we are doing our next crafting day, our next and our last crafting day. So Crystal Phoenix will be joining me. We will be making t-shirts again. Love to have you, whether you're making your t-shirt along with us or you just want to join us for the live. We'll probably be on for about an hour or so. Gives me a little bit of a break, and then I'll still be on for the regular live at 3 p.m. So it's not instead of, it's just in addition to. Oh, what else do I have to announce? So Wednesday, our next live on the 19th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to have Guy Bandy as a guest. He is of the channel Creating Change, and that is all about music and good vibes and positivity. And he and I are going to talk about trauma and music. So the healing power of music and how music really helped him on his healing journey from the trauma that he has gone through in his life. And he has a really unique story in terms of his trauma. It's not your typical childhood neglect or, SA type of thing. He was diagnosed with a significant medical condition at a very young age, and everything that he had to go through in terms of dealing with that, 30, 40, well, I think, 30, 40 years ago, and how our medical profession was then, definitely not as patient-centered as they are now. So he's going to be talking about that. And that's a type of trauma we have not really touched on here. And I say not really, I don't think we've touched on it at all. So it should be a very, very interesting conversation. And let me know in the comments if you like this format of having guests on and talking about things with them. And I'm batting around the idea of, a show just being interview, doing a show for half an hour, kind of introducing the subject, giving you some information behind it, then having the guest on, as part of the remainder of the show, or for the remainder of the show, and talking about their personal experiences and how it applies to them. I'm not sure. So let me know in the comments, which do you think you would prefer? And do you like having the guests on? I think it's nice change from just having me chatting at you. But today we are going to be talking about trauma, men and women. Does trauma affect men and women differently? If so, what are the differences? And in regards to Thank you so much, Kamal. There is Creating Changes link to their channel. Kamal just dropped. And he and another guy named Shindig are live every Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. And then they often in the evenings, 8, 9 o'clock, somewhere around there, will go live. It's not every day, but they'll do a Creating Change After Dark where they just kind of music jam and are a little less formal. But their daily show is more about just good vibes, positivity, lifting other channels up, that sort of thing. You love when we have guests on. Helps you see that you're not alone. That is absolutely true. I mean, I can sit here and, say, well, you're not alone. And, this is what the research shows and other survivors is this. But it is nice to kind of put a face to a story and hear how somebody else has put the things that we discuss into practice and how has it affected them. And they may come up with some things that we haven't really thought of or we haven't discussed. And you're like, huh, that really resonates with me. That's something that I think I might try. So we're going to do more of that. And today is kind of a first step. I had already put this off, so I didn't want to put it off again. But my partner on their morning show is Shindig, and he is going to be joining me here probably before the month ends. We're just working on time, but he counsels men. And so we're going to be talking specifically about men and trauma. And when I get that nailed down on which day he'll be on, I will put the thumbnail up for that. So it'll be a nice follow-up to the discussion that we're having today. And we'll probably be bringing in some of the things that we talk about. So hopefully you guys will join us for that as well and kind of hear on his side of the things from years and years and years of dealing with men and counseling them and hearing about their traumas. Particularly for any of our men in the audience, I think it's helpful to hear that you're not alone, and men do have, men and women are different, right? I mean, just the fact of nature and also of nurture. I mean, what is the typical gender roles and what's expected of us in society is still very much ingrained, I think, in a lot of us. And when I'm talking today about these differences, it's all based on studies that have been done. And of course, they're generalities. They're what they've taken from the study, kind of what they've shown. So if something doesn't resonate with you and you're like, no, that's not it for me, that's fine. It's not going to apply 100% of the time to absolutely everybody. But I think it kind of gives us a good baseline as to where these differences are. I often say trauma is trauma is trauma. And that is true to an extent. I say trauma is trauma is trauma, but it all affects us the same. That's not 100% accurate of a statement. I need to put a caveat on that. To while we experience similar effects, there are some marked differences. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. I do have one other announcement that I would like to make, and but I'm going to save it for a minute and wait till we get a few more people here in the chat because I know we've got some others coming. I already spoke with them. So without further ado, let's get into it. Differences with men and women in trauma and, how we react. So we're going to talk about this in a couple of different ways. We're going to talk about physical differences in terms of our physical bodies. We're going to be speaking about differences in our emotional, psychological response, and also what societal, cultural impacts there are and how that affects men and women. Hey, Indigo, good to see you today. So glad you're here. So first off, just want to say approximately 70% of all people are going to experience some form of trauma within their lifetime. So that is basically a huge majority. Statistically speaking, men are more likely to experience a trauma that is of a violent nature. So we're talking about accidents, combat, physical assaults. Women are more likely to suffer from SA, DV, domestic violence, and other forms of interpersonal trauma. And we're going to see with some of the research why I think, well, say why things are the way they are. I don't have a better way of saying that right now. 70% seems low. Yeah, I personally felt that it was higher. I feel like I've seen higher numbers, but safe to say, I had a lot of 70, 80 type numbers. So we're just going to go with 70 for right now, and still a significant chunk of our population, right? Almost three quarters. Hey, Todd, how's it going? Hope that you are doing well. I hope you got your stitches out. So first off, let's talk about our physical body. What has been shown to be differences in men and women in how our body reacts to trauma? And the studies are very interesting, and they're doing more and more and more in regards to this. It's a kind of a hot area of research right now, in particular because a number of years ago, like say in the United States, the National Institute of Health dictated that you have to study men and women when you're doing a study. You can't do just men. I mean, unless your focus is just men, but if you're studying a general tenet or you have a general hypothesis, you need to include both men and women, or male and female, I should say, when you're dealing with it, whether that's humans or animals. So in regards to the brain, there's a couple of different significant things that they have found. One, in terms of how stress affects the brain, in particular, we're talking about the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And this is a part of our neuroendocrine system that affects our body's ability to regulate stress. And what they found was that women are more likely to have anxiety and mood disorders. So they found that women were not able to process stress as well as men. And that really leads into another study that was dealing with looking at the gender differences in regards to a body's response to trauma. And it showed that women in general seem to have a higher cortisol level in response to trauma. And the cortisol is our stress hormone. And that correlated to a more significant reduction in brain activity in our hippocampus, which is responsible for memory, learning, and spatial navigation. Men, on the other hand, when in response to stress from a traumatic event, had less activity in their amygdala. And the amygdala is that lizard brain that we have, our survival part of our brain. that handles our fight flight response, fear processing, and our emotional responses. So this tends to explain, or it supports the notion of why women have higher fear and emotional responses that in general lead to higher rates of anxiety and depression, because they have found that women on the whole, compared to men, suffer from anxiety and depression as a result of a traumatic event. Oh, I thought somebody new joined. I was just going to say hi. So I found both of those facts really interesting. And I'm going to have to go down this way because I can't find my cursor, because of course I forgot to change my cursor so it wasn't white. So we're just going to do this. So also, there was a really interesting study in regards to hormones in our body. And the research showed, and the research was in animals, but they extrapolated it out to humans, that women have a lower fear response when our estrogen levels are high. Huh, that's really curious. So we have higher fear response when our estrogen levels are low, suggesting that the estrogen in our body plays a really key part in buffering our body's memory of traumatic events. And I thought, how fascinating. So two women go through the exact same thing, but they're at different points in their cycle. One is at a point where their estrogen level is really high. One is at a point where the estrogen level is really low. And that could be an indicator, a explanation as to why they might have different responses to the same event. Hey, Janet, how you doing? So much more research needs to be done on that to, I think, figure out why. I found that absolutely fascinating. So men generally have higher levels of testosterone, and we know that testosterone has, it's been linked to more aggressive behaviors. And this tends to explain why men will often demonstrate more post-traumatic, more aggressive post-traumatic behaviors than women. Women in general have a more emotional response to traumatic stress. So that's what I found in regards to differences in how our bodies actually react to trauma. And I'm sure in the coming years we'll continue to have more that comes out. So Body Illusion asks, what about menopause when estrogen levels are low? And I would argue that because the estrogen levels are low, that our body does not have the ability to buffer ourselves as well against traumatic stress. So it is the case where, our estrogen levels decline as we get older, and then especially in menopause, they're their absolute lowest. Yeah, based on the research, that's about all I can say. I'll say it definitely is another reason I'm thankful that I'm on hormone replacements right now. Body, I wouldn't go so far as to say that women would be more susceptible. Um, it's just so far it's indicating that women's bodies aren't able to process the stress, process the fear as well as they would if their estrogen levels are high. And again, everybody's an individual, so you can't say 100%, but um, in general, right now, that's kind of where the research is pointing. Time will tell, and we'll find more, find out more about. I can't talk today, guys. I am so sorry. So, what about our emotional and psychological responses to trauma? There's been a lot of research about PTSD and the differences between men and women in regards to post-traumatic stress disorder. One of the things that they have found is that women are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop PTSD after a traumatic event than men. And their PTSD symptoms compared to men who have PTSD, women's PTSD symptoms last approximately 4 times longer. So they are definitely finding that post-traumatic stress affects women in greater numbers and for a longer period of time. Now, why is that? Well, there's several potential answers. Partly, I think, partly nature, partly nurture. One of the things the study had shown is that people are more likely to develop PTSD after suffering um, sexual or domestic violence. And with the statistics showing that women are more likely to be subjected to SA or DV, it makes sense then that they have higher rates of PTSD. Interesting side note, just on a physical level, and I found this study, and it was a very small study, but it supports this notion that women are more likely to develop PTSD after trauma. And it had to do with them looking at a part of our brain that is called the anterior circular sulcus, SULCUS. I think I'm saying that right, which affects our emotions, awareness, and empathy. And the study found that this area was larger in boys and smaller in girls. And what that correlated to was women, I guess, as that area is smaller, women are more likely to develop PTSD. They don't have the ability to process fear, process stress, process the emotions as well as men. And this was specifically a boys and a girls study. So I'm saying men and women, I'm using the correlation loosely. So if you want to talk about, childhood trauma. And I think there's definitely a reason then to be looking at studying boys and girls who have suffered trauma because of how that trauma carries with us into adulthood. And the numbers of people who are likely to have not dealt with it or gone on their healing journey as a child and are dealing with it for the first time as an adult. I think it's really interesting looking at the differences, that some of these differences are not just as we develop, but are there from the beginning, and to see how many of them are there from the beginning. Or do our bodies need a chance to develop and go through puberty for this to take effect? So interesting side note in regards to that. The studies also showed that women tended to have higher rates of cumulative trauma effects on their mental health. I did not go in depth into the study looking at their reasons why, but I thought it was interesting. Um, and it goes along with that notion that women are 4 times more likely to, or that women's PTSD symptoms last 4 times as long. You can see where, if that is the case, that any additional trauma that happens is just going to pile on to that as you're still dealing with the effects of a previous trauma, right? Hey Donna, how are you? Good to have you. No worries, replay is always an option. Deidre Gore, I'm so glad that you are here. Crystal, I didn't read anything on this, so I can't answer your question with any sort of confidence. Crystal asked, is this because males are more likely to be more active in ways that release pent-up energy than females after a traumatic event? I have not found anything that speaks to activity level being a reason as to why we would process fear or emotions or stress a particular way. So I don't know on that. So, but emotionally speaking, women are also more likely to utilize ruminative or, thinking or emotion focused coping strategies than men, while men are more likely to use problem solving coping skills. Now, this is not to say one is better than the other, it's just different approaches to the same problem, to the trauma. And there are, I think, strengths and weaknesses with each of them. One of them, like say for women with the emotion focused coping skills, this leads women to be more inclined to seek out social support networks than men. Men tend to isolate, withdraw, or react in anger, act out. So problem solving is not necessarily actually solving the problem, but it's going, okay, here's the issue. What do we do about it? And men, what they do about it is they tend to ignore it. They withdraw from the rest of society so they don't have to interact with people, isolating themselves or just compartmentalizing it and trying to just put it in another, box. Sporty Otter Pop, love the name. Renee Lilly, oh, I love that name too. Welcome to our SAS community here. Says, hi, I will try tonight. So I don't know if your internet is out or you just don't really have the time so you can watch on replay. That is totally fine, but welcome. And we look forward to having you in a future chat with us. Donna asks, the chat's going, and so I'm trying to get up here. Women tend to internalize more than men. Yes, and that's actually one of my other points that I was going to make is men tend to externalize the trauma, which means they tend to blame somebody else for the trauma, and they don't look inwards at all as to really how it's affecting them. It's, you did this, so therefore, everything's on you. I don't have to look in terms of how the trauma is affecting me. Women, on the other hand, and this is what studies have shown, do tend to internalize the trauma more and blame themselves and look inside themselves and say, what did I do about it? But they also tend to then internalize in regards to what can I do about this? Whereas men don't. So it's not to say that one approach is necessarily better than the other. They both have strengths and weaknesses. And it's very interesting looking at this and looking at, why men are, why men are the way they are in regards to how they emotionally respond to trauma. And we're going to talk about cultural factors here next, if I can find my cursor again. Hang on one second, guys. And so when talking about women internalizing trauma more, turning to thinking inside their heads or emotionally responding to the trauma, this is where I think, science is playing a little bit of a part in terms of an explanation, but I think nurture in this regard really helps to explain it more. Because when we think about it, think about our traditional roles in society. Women are supposed to be more of the warm and fuzzies, stay at home, take care of the children, take care of the house, take care of the emotional needs of people, being concerned about others, being empathetic. Whereas men are the out there, I have to take care of my family, so I have to problem solve. I have to, if I need money, I need to work. How am I going to get this done? How am I going to get that done? And so these expectations just in society, and also with, cultural factors, have really ingrained this in a lot of us. And I definitely think that that is a huge um, reason as to why we see that men externalize trauma, whereas women internalize trauma. Also, looking at the stigma factor of trauma, particularly looking at SADV, interpersonal trauma. The stigma for men is much, much higher, right? And this again, to me, explains why men would be more likely to react in terms of withdrawing, isolating, avoidance behaviors in terms of, pretending the problem doesn't exist, and react with aggressive coping skills, which are things, again, such as anger. The avoidance falls under that, and substance abuse. The research has shown that men are more likely to cope with a trauma turning to substances than women. Not to say that women don't, because we know that they do, and in large numbers, right? Turning to some form of substance as a negative coping skill is quite common for people with trauma. It's estimated, I think, that 75 to 85% of all people who have substance abuse issues have suffered some form of trauma in their life. I think that we can also say, in terms of the stigma, historically, for women, that stigma has been, what did you do? You must have caused this. Whether it was because of how you acted within your interpersonal relationship, how you dressed, what you said, what you did. So the blame has always really been put on the woman for their own trauma. So that also would go to explain why women internalize our trauma more than men do. Hey, Simon girl, how you doing? Glad you stopped by. Jimena, always good to see you. I hope your day is going well. I think I saw Tommy Sticks dropping by for a minute. Deaudrey Gore. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here. Yes, this is one of my lighter sweatshirts. It's actually kind of a mint green, but it does look blue on the screen. And I love it. It's kind of a nice light weight in between. Let's see if I missed anybody else. Sporty Otter Pup has a channel. Well, I'm going to have to check that out. Thank you, Carmel, for throwing it up there. Really appreciate it. Donna says, the stigma is higher for men, but also different. Men aren't supposed to feel the trauma, but women aren't blamed. I think you mean women are blamed for it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you meant women are blamed for it. Yeah, men historically, any sort of trauma, it's definitely been a get over it, right? Get over it, man up, push through, on to the next thing. So you can see why it would be common that men use more problem-solving coping skills than women. Sorry, guys, my son just dropped by real quick. This does not surprise me. Deaudrey says, I have a friend in AA, which is Alcoholics Anonymous, for those of you who don't know, support group for people with alcoholism. And she said her group eventually became a trauma support group because they all had traumatic childhoods. Yeah, 100% not surprised by that at all. Other says, walk it off. Yes, another common, phrase that would be, used for men. We've often talked about differences in childhood trauma, and men in particular, boys, I should say, in particular, in people's response to their trauma, either not believing it because that happened, you're a guy, why didn't you do something about it, right? No, you're not, blah, blah, blah. And, when I was looking at all of this and I put it all together and was thinking and said, okay, well, this is really interesting. As a first thought, I just was really interested in this notion of, are there differences between men and women and how trauma affects them? Because I had always said trauma affects us all equally, and it does, but it does affect us in different ways. Well, why should we even care about this? Before I get to that, Tommy Stiggs says, definitely easier said than done sometimes. Absolutely, because no one should be expected to just brush off their trauma. I think that if you've learned nothing from the year that I've been presenting issues on trauma, is that it doesn't do any good to ignore them. We can compartmentalize. I told you I can't speak today. We can compartmentalize them. We put them in a little box, put them in the back of our brain, but that doesn't mean they're not affecting us. That stuff will still leak out. And at some point in time, you're going to have to unpack that box if you want to heal, truly heal from that trauma. Otherwise, all those effects are just still going to leak out and affect your life in different ways, and you're not going to understand why. You'll be blaming it on something else, which is really a consequence of the traumatic effect. And you're never getting to the core root of something. You know, take, for instance, people with substance abuse issues who have trauma in their past, adult or childhood. You deal with the substance abuse, you get clean, great. But if you're not dealing with the reasons as to why you turn to substance abuse in the first place, you're still going to act the same. You're still going to react the same. In alcoholism, they call it being a dry drunk. You're not drinking, but your actions are still the same because you're not getting at the root of your problem. Hey, Echo, how you doing? Again, this does not surprise me. It goes right into what we were talking about with kind of the expected roles of men. You know, men are to be tough, women are the nurturers, right? Others says there's a group that does social experiments, had a guy get mad and push around women, and the bystanders jumped in every time. But when the roles were reversed, nearly never did someone jump in. How even some of the bystanders joined in to help push around the guy. Yeah, not surprising, is it? And I think that this really comes to my point in, so why do we care? Why care about the differences between men and women? Well, it's because when we come to the table, when we're looking to heal, it's critical that the mental health professionals understand where you're coming from. So not only from a social, from social responses, socially ingrained responses, but also understanding that some of this is based in science, understanding that we have these differences and how you might approach your trauma differently. That's going to be key in how they approach the client and in how they craft an appropriate treatment plan for that person. Because as I was listening to one psychologist, she said, we have to meet our clients where they are. And there are marked differences, generally speaking, in how men and women come to the table. And let me read my note real quick as to what she had to say. Yeah, just from what we've been speaking about, women have more emotive, I can't even read my writing. Women are coming from more of a place of emotion, of internalizing that trauma, whereas men are coming from that problem solving aspect, a more discerning mind. Okay, what's the treatment? What do I do? How do I fix this? They're not tending to feel their emotions as much. Whereas, women are feeling those emotions, but almost too much to where they need to have that discerning mind to kind of be able to put those emotions in place and process the feelings and be able to get, down your healing journey. And I loved what she said at the end. She said, at its core, I want to get this right. She said, our natural state is gender free. It's a balanced state. But because of these differences and reinforced by societal factors, we don't come at trauma We don't come to our healing journey being balanced between being able to think about our situation and feel all the emotions that go with it. When we're able to put those two in balance, that's where we're really able to make strides in our healing journey. And hopefully by the end of our healing journey, if you want to call it an end, I don't think that we ever truly, truly end our healing journey, but at least in regards to unpacking specific trauma, we come to a place of balance to where our logical mind and our ability to think through our issues and our ability to process that fear, process the trauma on an emotional level is in balance. And so not only for our healthcare professionals, mental health professionals, but for ourselves as well. As I always say, knowledge is power. And coming to the table, coming to an understanding of where you are and how you're approaching things and why you approach things the way you do can go a long way to assisting you in being able to process through all of your trauma. It's very empowering, I think, to know why we do things the way we do. I know when I first came across the CPTSD diagnosis, that's the complex post-traumatic stress disorder, I was like, holy heck, this describes me to a T. No wonder I did that in childhood. No wonder I do this as an adult. Because as I've told you guys, I'm still on my healing journey. It's not over for me. And the more I learn about trauma, the more I am able to process my trauma better. And I discover little nuances of things that I hadn't really dealt with before. So I'm such a staunch proponent of education, and why you find a lot of my videos are me talking to you about certain subjects, because it's empowering for us to know, not only for ourselves, not only for the healthcare professionals, but for the others out there as well. To be able to explain to somebody, hey, this is why I am the way that I am. This is what I'm doing about it. For supporters of the survivors, everybody who's within the survivors support network, I think it's much easier to deal with somebody when you have an understanding of where they're coming from. And it's not to say you're condoning any particular behavior or way of dealing with something, but it's much easier to deal with it, I think, when you have an understanding. And I will take this out of trauma context a little bit in terms of my ex's alcoholism. I struggled for years and years to deal with it. I went to Al-Anon, online, in person. The concepts, it didn't really fit me. I wasn't able to deal with it on that level. When I started to understand how the brain processes this need for the substance and how that played out in their emotions and how that played out in their actions. I still didn't like the way he was acting, but it was easier for me to understand it then. And so it was also easier for me to talk to my son as to, yeah, this is why dad is the way he is. Not condoning, but it's an explanation and makes it easier to kind of, work around. Hey, Misha, how you doing? I got your text. I think it was a text. Could have been an email. I'm a little blue this morning or this afternoon, but I need to get back to you on that. I have not had a chance to look at it. I was so busy researching this morning. that I have not gotten to, several emails that I owe some of you. Hey, Joe Town, how are you doing today? I am so glad that you've joined us. Let's see if anybody else had dropped in. Let's see. Tommy says men and women handle issues differently, but so many factors must go into it. Absolutely. And so, as we're discovering, there's not only scientific reasons as to why men and women deal with things differently or react differently to trauma, but the societal factors that go into it. You know, all the nurture aspect of it. Okay, I did get right what you said before, Donna. Okay. Oh, Sporty must do music. That's wonderful. I will definitely check your channel out, Sporty. Joe Town says, yes, men of my generation were taught to stuff it. You know, I dealt with a lot of survivors, older men, and when I say older, I mean 50 plus years, who were survivors of SA. And speaking to them was a carbon copy, one after the next after a next, of their experience in it, whether they had chose to disclose, you know, or not. What they were told, what they had been told about problems, they internalized it. It was the same. And we've come a long way in that. But in general, there still is this notion of, you know, men must suck it up and get it done. Move on to the next. You know, no use crying over spilled milk type of thing. And if there's one thing we've learned about trauma, again, it has to be dealt with. If you're going to be a healthy human being, you have to deal with it proactively, or I should say actively deal with your trauma. Otherwise, you're going to suffer the consequences. And I think it is really harmful and hurtful to the person when they're acting in certain ways and they themselves don't have an understanding as to why they are. Or you try and change, but that change never sticks because you're never addressing the root. You're never addressing the cause of why you really are acting that way in the first place. So compartmentalization, you know, not thinking about it, it absolutely does us no good. Jimena says in countries like mine, which is Mexico, it's very, very rare to see men reaching out for help. Yeah, absolutely. And the studies have shown women are much more likely to reach out for help than men. There was an interesting study in regards to social media, and it was talking about the role of social media in men and women who had suffered trauma. And what they found was women tended to use social media to reach out to one another, to find a support network, right? While men use social media as a distraction. Again, let's forget about it and cope in another way. I thought that was a really interesting little study that was done. How many? You're right. Like I said, you know, we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. The newer generations, we are focusing on mental health more, and in general, not just dealing with trauma, but how important our mental health is in general to being healthy. And the more we learn about how much our mind affects our physical body, physically affects pain, the more we're understanding that this needs to be this connection, we have to have balance. Goes back to a balance, you know, and that I just the research that is going into now to finding out that trauma, how much it affects our bodies by the increase in cortisol, which decreases our immune system. A decrease in the immune system means our body can't fight different pathogens as effectively. So you have higher instances of um, autoimmune diseases and chronic pain conditions. And it's fascinating. And it's like, it makes perfect sense to me. Sorry, I'm just catching up with the chat real quick. It, Donna, I can certainly understand why you would say that you're in a I don't want to feel any emotions. If you're emotionless, it would be you'd be happier. The problem with that is that that trauma is still affecting you, and it's still going to leak out even though you aren't feeling those feelings. And as painful as it is, we have to process through those emotions to be able to get to a homeostasis, to be able to get to a balance in our life, and being able to put the trauma behind us. It sucks. And it can be very scary. You see this with, a lot of people who have suppressed their emotions for so long. You'd like to try and just unpack them one by one, right? And not be overwhelmed by your emotions. What tends to happen is the floodgates, when you finally break through that barrier, the floodgates go through, and you're feeling so much. But it's critical. It's really important in your healing journey that you can get to that point. But it's totally understandable why this is a coping mechanism in terms of dealing with things that are really hard to deal with. I did it for years, not the emotional numbing, but the trying to forget about the trauma, not dealing with it. Okay, it happened, it's in the past. I don't have any effects from it. Let's just move on, right? Until I really started understanding about trauma and trauma effects later on in life, and understanding how it was affecting me, even though I didn't know it. Yeah, very true, Crystal. If you don't deal with your trauma, it can come out in physical health conditions, 100%. Just, like I was saying. Hey, Dave, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Hope you are enjoying some nice weather there on the East Coast. I'm sorry, Donna. It's hard. Plain and simple. It is hard dealing with trauma. There's nothing easy about it. And depending on what's going on in our lives, it can be overwhelming just dealing with our life, not to mention then trying to unpack our trauma. I was there for years and years and years, and did the bare minimum basically to get by. I took care of myself. I fed my child. I made sure my child had food. Didn't feed him in terms of I wasn't cooking dinners, and things, but he had food. and he got to school and he was, clean and dressed. So it was like, and I made some money to pay my bills. That was it. Emotionally, I dealt with nothing. I was in a total freeze mode for many, many years. And it is very difficult to deal with that. So I feel for you. I really do. But just know that I really mean it when I say at the end of every life, you're worthy and you're valuable, because each and every one of us is. And I love this community so much. I'm so glad to see people reaching out to you. Donna, you've got my email. If please, you can email me anytime. And if you need to talk, we can make arrangements to make that happen as well. Just in terms of speaking about chronic conditions, chronic pain conditions, this was just something that came up in my news feed today, but they were talking about science. Researchers have discovered that the terpenes in cannabis, so weed, they are finding, because the terpenes by themselves, they don't have THC, so they don't have that psychoactive element, but they are finding that it's effective in treating chronic pain. So this is in animals, but they're hoping that future studies that they'll be able to extrapolate this and come up with some therapies for humans. And in particular, they're looking at it for fibromyalgia. And I know that there's many of you in the community who suffer from fibromyalgia, and there aren't really great medications out there to help right now. So it is let me get it. There are different types of terpenes, 4 different main types, I guess. And let me find it. So it's the terpenes in the cannabis sativa strain in particular. There's two strains, sativa and indica. So this is in the sativa strain. And in particular, the terpene geraniol, Geraniol. Geraniol. I think that's how you would say it. Of the 4, seems to be the most effective. So they're looking for an opioid replacement for pain, for chronic pain. They found that it wasn't really effective in dealing with acute pain. So, you stub your toe, you burn your hand, something that's a short-lived pain. But in dealing with chronic pain and to some degree post-operative pain, which is kind of in between acute and chronic, that they had some success controlling pain that way as well. So very, very interesting. I just thought I would bring that to your guys' attention. So that's what I have on the subject of, does trauma affect men and women differently? And the answer is, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. We are still going to deal with similar effects. It just can be the degree to which we do. It can be the initial approach to which we come from in dealing with the trauma can be different. But physically in our body, it's proving that there are just differences in the way our body is responding and able to process trauma. So knowing all of that and knowing how we respond, I think that it's really, again, really critical for our healthcare professionals to be able to come at this from a good standpoint in understanding their clients. And this is something that we're going to talk about again when Shindig is on with us and talking about men and trauma, and be really interested then to hear his take on dealing with men who have suffered trauma and what did he notice the most. And let's compare it to kind of what we were talking about today and see if we find the similarities. Do these play out at all? So he's only one person in Canada, and I think it's going to be an excellent talk. So I'm rambling a little bit, but I wanted to also have one major announcement for you guys. As you know, everything that I do in regards to this channel or outside of this channel, outside of my work, is aimed at bettering myself, to be able to bring you better content, to be more informed myself, to be able to speak from a better place, and to better this channel. And to grow this channel means that we are reaching more people and that more people have an opportunity to learn and to connect. As I told you guys on Wednesday, I have been given the opportunity to attend a 4-day retreat in Salt Lake City, Utah, through the SAPRI organization. That is a retreat for trauma survivors. So it's 4 days of learning about trauma, dealing with trauma, effective methods, so all things trauma related. And I'm extremely excited to do that. I have not picked my dates yet. I'm looking at probably May, and I need to get the dates for that. So I just have to get myself out there with airfare. But yesterday, I received an email that floored me. As you guys know, I have been chosen as a finalist for the Women Changing the World Awards. And Women Changing the World also puts out a book every year. Last year, they did a launch and they had a billboard in Times Square with their announcing the publishing of the book. They gave a copy of the book to all of the Oscar nominees and their swag bags. Gosh, I would love to be one of those people, right? Swag they must come back with after just attending something like that. They all got a copy of the book. There were a couple of writers had shared it on their social media and pushed it out to all of their followers. And so the book is an anthology. It's made up of individual stories. So each year they choose 25 people of the finalists to be to author a chapter in the book. And yesterday I was notified that they would like me to author a chapter in the book. And I'm getting chills just saying it again. I'm so honored to be chosen for it. I had to submit a little blurb as to kind of what my story would be, what did I think of? And so I presented my story, and our past doesn't define us, resilience, that whole thing, in dealing with childhood sexual assault and adult sexual assault. So yeah, I'm still kind of walking on cloud 9 in regards to that. It is pretty expensive because all of the profits from the book, because it's under the nonprofit umbrella of the Teresa Tarai International, Dr. Teresa Tarai. She is from Zimbabwe, and all of the profits from the book go towards primary and secondary education for rural girls in Zimbabwe. So the money goes to a great cause. So in regards to that, the authors themselves do need to pitch in and help pay for the publishing costs. It is quite expensive, actually. It's $3,500 so $3,500. I have decided to bite the bullet. They do have a monthly payment program. They spread it over 5 months. I've been able to come up with the first month. I have to submit that by Wednesday. And thereafter, I am going to be fundraising and continually fundraising to be able to meet my monthly goal of just over $600 every month to be able to be a part of this project. I think that not only for me personally, but really it's for the channel. The culmination of what I went through as a child has ended in this channel. It is my life work, my passion to be operating this channel, providing a space for everyone to come together, whether you've suffered trauma in the past or not, to learn, to educate, and the exposure that being a part of this book can have, I feel, is only going to be positive in regards to looking at um, looking at the channel and getting our message out of what we're all about. So if anybody is wanting to help defray any of these costs, I do have PayPal and Cash App. I don't have Venmo set up right now, but if that's a concern for somebody, certainly email me, let me know. I also do have a way to wire money directly into a Surviving Together account. So all the funds are kept separate. This is not money I'm using for my own personal use. Any money that I've received thus far has only gone back into the channel and always will go back into the channel. It's something that I believe in strongly, and that's a tenet that I will stick by. So if you're interested in the wire information, again, email me and I can get that to you separately for obvious reasons. Banking information, it's not something that I will be publishing. If Hi, Keela, how you doing? She says, how can we help? So taking donations is one way. Getting the word out that I'm looking for support. I'm possibly going to be starting a GoFundMe for this. I'm not sure. We'll just see. I've got some tax return money of my own that I'm going to be putting towards this. They are going to be launching the book November 7th in New York City. I plan to be there for the launch. I'm really excited. I have some friends in the area who are planning on meeting me in the area. I will be reaching out at that point in time, probably for some couches to surf on for a few days, so that I can avoid New York City hotel costs. But that'll be organized closer to the time that comes. I'm not sure where I'd be flying into. Keela says, have you thought about Send Go? I have not heard about that, Keela. I will look into it. I've reached out to a person who has been a part of publishing books in the past, doing fundraisers for books. We're going to talk and see what we can do. I will also be given free copies of the book, and so those will also be giveaways that I will be doing on my channel. So you might end up with a free copy yourself. I know that they sell it on Amazon. It did end up on Amazon's bestseller list last year, and I'm so excited. I just, yeah, I can't keep a smile off my face. So our final drafts are due July 7th. So between now and July 7th, I will be working hard on my chapter. And they've got several workshops for us. It's professional publishers, professional editors that deal with it. So, and the money from the sales of the book all go to a great cause, ensuring that rural girls in Zimbabwe can get some education. and they're not just stuck at home as baby factories, basically. So that is my big news this week. So yeah, good things are happening. Good things are happening for the SaaS community, and along with the Sapphire Retreat is a 4.5 hour webinar that goes through trauma and trauma healing. They actually do have that as free to the general public. If you are interested in it, you just need to go to sapria.org, and there's an application that you need to fill out. I think they said take like 15-20 minutes for you to do. So they go through a bunch of questions because, of course, they want to make sure that the right people, they need to vet you, right? That the right people are going into this chat, because people do share sensitive information, and they need to make sure that you're going to be responding with empathy and care and concern for the fellow survivors who would be in the webinar. But it's a 4.5 hour webinar, and I'm going to be doing that in April, I think April 12th. It was about the only Saturday date I could find. So my live that day will actually be pushed back. I'm still planning on doing it, but it's probably going to be at 5 o'clock instead of 3 o'clock Eastern. But I will get the thumbnail up for that, and plenty of notice, so you guys know that you just need to show up a little bit later. Oh, okay, Keela. Give, send, go. You know, actually, I wonder, it sounded vaguely familiar. I think that was somebody who a friend of mine had tapped into. But I will definitely look into it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, if anybody wants to share the news just on their social media, whether it's you have a YouTube platform or you have Instagram or Facebook, I would love. I am fighting with Facebook right now. I'm in appeals. They say that I'm a fraud. I don't know how. I'm just trying to set up a Facebook page for Surviving Together, but they said I'm not a real person, and I don't know what to do to prove it to them other than what I've done so far. So we'll see. But if anybody is interested in starting a Surviving Together Facebook page and wants to run that for me, because you would have to run it for me, because again, I don't have the ability to get into Facebook at the moment. That would definitely be something that I would be looking that I look forward to. So just reach out to me in my email, and which you can find in every video description. The Cash App and the PayPal information is in every video description as well. So, you know, if later on you decide, yeah, this is something I want to do, just go into one of the videos and you'll find it there. I think I've gotten all the videos, but at least in all the most recent lives, it is there. Hey, James, how you doing today? How's England treating you? How's it going over there? I hope well. Do I have a write-up yet? No, I don't. As soon as they get my initial deposit, they will be sending out press materials that I will be able to post. So the only thing I have is, I don't know how much of it I can share with you. They sent a link for a YouTube video. I'll just have to check whether it's public or private. If it's public, I can share with everybody, and it just kind of explains the process. I have a feeling though it was a private link, but I could share if you're interested in sharing. I can put together kind of the basics of what I know at this point. I'm sure more will be to come. There will be more professional put together press releases as I think they get the 25 locked in. Like I said, Wednesday is our deadline. I think if the original 25 have not, responded, then they'll go to the next person in line. When they get everybody locked in, they'll be sending those materials. I do want to send hugs and love for everybody who needs it. I know that there are a lot of members of our community who are going through some trying times right now, whether it is due to mental struggles or whether it is due to physical struggles. My heart goes out to you. I 100% feel for you. Many of you know I've been going through my own health struggles, and we have our ultrasound on Tuesday. Can't believe it is time already. So we will hopefully have some results by the end of this week at latest, knowing what's going on. So yeah, so that's my big news. So very excited about it. Thank you guys for all for here and are sticking around. And if you want to know more or want to do more, just reach out to me at my email. It's the best way to contact me. And I'm obviously happy to share any information that I possibly can with you to be able to promote this endeavor. I'm so excited about it. What I have to say, I think, is going to resonate with all survivors of sexual abuse. And, you know, really, I hope the message that I have will also be able to correlate to any trauma survivor. That's my goal in terms of how I want to write this chapter in writing my story and sharing my healing journey. The other piece to it, I forgot to mention, with attending the book launch in person in New York City, all of the authors who attend in person will also be speaking on a panel at the Women Changing the World Awards America Summit. The finalist awards that I'm part of is the international. They just started in Americas. They had their first one, I think, last year. So this year they're doing it again, and the book launch will coincide with the summit. So I'll actually be at the summit and be speaking to all of the people at the summit about my chapter. It's pretty incredible. Nerve-wracking, but exciting and wonderful. Misha says, if you want to raid a worthy channel, Cosmic Christie is going live in just a few. Oh, awesome. Awesome, awesome. Misha's put up the link there. If for whatever reason, if the link doesn't work for you, you can find her at Christy Robinson, and that's Christy Robinson 1979. That is her YouTube channel. So I need to take a quick break after this, but I will definitely try and tune in at least on my phone to listen and to say hi to Cosmic and all of you. If you guys did not catch the live that we had with Cosmic Christie, we did an interview on trauma and autism. It was extremely informative for me, someone who doesn't come from an autism background. I don't have anybody close to me with autism, so I haven't dealt with it on a one-on-one basis. And so definitely that was our last live on Wednesday, so you can go check that out. Again, if you haven't hit that like button, please do so before you click off. Really appreciate it. Subscribe, and if you can comment after the show, that would be appreciated. The algorithm loves it. The more comments, the more the algorithm goes, hey, people are interested in this content. Let's push it out to some more people. So appreciate all of you who support the channel, you being here. You guys make this community. This channel is only as good as you guys are, and you are awesome. And I could not thank you enough. So here we go. Carmel just put up Christie's main channel link so that you have that if for some reason the specific thumbnail link doesn't work for you. And you can check out Cosmic Christie. All right. With that, I will bid you adieu till Wednesday when Guy Bandy with from Creating Change will be on with me, and we will be talking about trauma and music, specifically the healing power of music in dealing with your trauma, and how music helped him on his healing journey, dealing with medical trauma, which is something we have not really spoken about. So look for that. We will be on at 6 p.m. Wednesday at Eastern Standard Time. I look forward to seeing all of you there. Jimena is just announcing she is going live at 7 p.m. Central, so it's 8 p.m. Eastern, and that is wonderful. Do you have a topic, Jimena? I'd be happy to announce that as well. But Jimena's channel is always a good time. It's positive, it's healing. Love her, love the channel. If you guys have not had a chance to check her out yet, definitely do so. Ooh, so the topic for Jimena will be witchy would you rather. Find out your magical creature and element. Oh, hippy dippy stuff. I love it. I will definitely try and be there. Definitely try and be there. Keely, you're mentioning your interview was canceled, but I'm not sure who with. I'm sorry that that happened. And I hope whatever that situation is rectifies itself very, very soon. Guys, thank you for joining me today. Whether you were with me live here, whether you are joining on replay, I want to tell you to remember you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are loved for who you are, just the way you are. Hugs and love from me, guys. Remember, surviving together, never alone. And enjoy this outro that our wonderful Jimena did for us.
Through the fire, through the rain, we have walked through endless pain, but we stand, we rise again, stronger now, we break the chain, surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. Every tear, every scar tells the story of who we are. Not just survivors, but warriors too. With love as our armor, we see this through. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together.